Hello, my name's Toby Haydoke, and this is Happy Times and Places, in which I ask a friend of mine to choose a Doctor Who story and secretly pick their favourite things about it. I then commentate along to each episode, accentuate the positive, and see if I can guess what that favourite thing might be.
Hi, I'm Erica Lear, and I'm part of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society, and I also run my own Doctor Who conventions in the Northwest. The story I've chosen is the Caves of Androzani.
Well now, will Doctor Who get out of a cliffhanger involving being loomed over by the most disappointing aspect of an otherwise brilliant Doctor Who story? I had a running gag actually in my second Doctor Who show, My Stepson Stole My Sonic Screwdriver, that I cut quite close to the end of actually doing it. I had a running gag about, the one aspect of it. Every Doctor Who story had something that didn't work or made you cringe. And I called it the giant rat because, the giant rat was, the one thing that sullied an otherwise perfect Doctor Who story, The Talons of Weng-Chiang. Interestingly, of course, time, and now that we have conversations about, the appropriation of the appropriateness of makeup and Caucasian actors playing ethnic parts, that has cast a bigger shadow over The Talons of Weng-Chiang, which I note with interest rather than anything else. So the giant rat would actually be a bad example because of The Talons of Weng-Chiang is not now so straightforward in our eyes. So perhaps I would call it the becloaked bat monster. It doesn't chip off the tongue as well as the giant rat. But anyway, I'm mulling at the moment because I'm trying to write a podcast about things never quite being perfect. Is there a perfect Doctor Who story? Caves of Androzani is the one that's won many, many, many polls, but I don't think anyone would say that the bat monster is good, although a couple of people on my Patreon have pointed out, Harper shoots it as well as possible. He shoots it from underneath so that it looms over the Doctor in that cliffhanger. I still think, we get that full-length shot of it far away, and I still don't think... And yeah, there are attempts, especially this episode coming up, to kind of shoot it only in snatches, but with the best will in the world, it doesn't quite work. So is there such a thing as a perfect Doctor Who story? But is there such a thing as a perfect anything? So therefore, do you give anything 10 out of 10? I've started to, actually. For the wheezing groaning sound, they've just announced that they're doing Horror of Fang Rock, and they encourage you to sort of put your thoughts on Twitter, because they release, as they record, which I don't do quite so much. There's less audience interaction from mine. I'm far too... I can only really rely on... Well, no, I can't even rely on myself, so I have to do this kind of in a bubble and with, pre-recorded contributions from guests. But I decided in the end, I initially gave Horror of Fang Rock, I think, 98 out of 100, and I thought, no, actually, because I think the bit at the end when the Doctor talks to the root and is slightly drawn out, I don't think the cliffhanger part one is great, the Airfix boat. But in the end, I just thought, yeah, but it's Doctor Who. There are episodes of Juliet Bravo where there's probably an unconvincing door, because it was made at that time. And I went, Doctor Who's my favourite thing ever. You can have things that are 100 out of 100, even if they've not got perfect things about them. Sometimes... It's like in a relationship, isn't it? Are you saying that the person you're with is perfect, or do you love them more than anything in the world, even though you're aware of their imperfections? And I think that might be a better way to be, although I've always been a glass half empty sort of person. I've always been no, I can never quite give it the full marks. But now that you're exposed to other people's opinions, where a lot of people... on Twitter, I've just been seeing somebody on Twitter completely missing the point of a film, for example. And going, God, you just spend all your time saying this is rubbish and that's rubbish. And is that a way to be? To just sort of pick holes in the endeavour of others, which seems to me actually a less valuable use of your time than what they're doing, which is making a flawed something. Do you know what I mean? It's yeah. But actually, there's something cathartic about going, well, I watched this thing that's not very important. It's just a disposable piece of entertainment, and I, got all my frustration out, or I enjoyed the process of in a safe environment, just being excoriating about something that doesn't really matter. So it's complicated, isn't it? And I talk too much about everything. So it's part 3 of The Caves of Androzani. My guest is Erica Lear, who, despite being barking, and I say that with great affection, also has a heart of gold, and is a good egg. And I'm glad she hasn't just gone Peter Davison for every episode, because I wouldn't have put it past her. But I've probably known Erica a very long time now. It's funny because you think you meet people through Doctor Who and you sort of go, oh yeah, I know them, and then you break it down and you go, oh my goodness, I've known them for blooming ages. Anyway, let's see what she chooses for part 3 in 3, 2, 1. So yes, I watched this all those years ago as an omnibus, but I would watch the opening and closing titles, and let me not get started on my frustration with having to scrabble around to find the remote control in order that the closing titles don't disappear just before you've even had a second to register that they're happening. That is a sign of the oncoming collapse of civilization. Robert Holmes. I searched Robert Holmes recently to see if there was any reports in any papers, even trade papers. Well, no, I didn't get I don't get Ariel or the BBC's or any of those. But anywhere in the media of his death, considering he was, writing Doctor Who that was being made to go out, and actually, his last work was aired posthumously. Nothing. There's stuff in the Doctor Who papers, but I find that extraordinary now. I mean, if he had died now, say, I would be straight onto the Guardian and would probably be able to get him an obituary. Times change. This is actually, apart from the full length sort of wobbly gate thing going on, I like that shot, the way that Harper gets the camera sort of giddy and in and slightly blurred. And there it's in darkness in silhouette. There's some wise shooting going on there, and this is brilliant. I love the pan across the caves to give it some sense of length, and the Doctor sort of running as the camera runs and moves. That gives it a sort of sense of pace and slightly disjointedness. But when I was watching this with my mates, it didn't really recover. They really enjoyed finding that sequence crap. Again, it's that sort of joy. I mean, it used to frustrate me being with drama students who didn't really sort of respect the endeavour, the artistry or creativity in something, and see past it. It's a bit like going to the theatre and sort of going, well, yeah, but he's on the floor and he's still breathing and he's supposed to be dead. Well, yes, because you can't actually kill an actor. You haven't won by not seeing through the artifice. Anyway, this is a well-rehearsed conversation. This is very, very nice. Beautiful lighting here. The lighting is excellent. Although one suspects it would be slightly done. No, because you get the phosphorescence in a cave, and there's also probably lighting done by Jack and the military. This is really very well done. Nice use of level on the set. So the set design is it complements. It's sympathetic to what the director's trying to achieve. Davison has that wonderful insolence, which is quite a Tom Baker-y thing, actually, to be quite insolent in the face of posturing and power or threatening behaviour, to try and either disarm it or wind it up. And if you wind up somebody who is coolly threatening you, they suddenly, they lose their upper hand or could potentially make a mistake. So it's not just a character point. Well, it is a character point. It's what the Doctor does to undermine those who are, better positioned, better armed, more prone to violence than he, which I think is one of the great things about the character. You're a wily fellow. I again, it's that slightly old-fashioned dialogue that works. It doesn't seem out of place, and I like. I remember this being quite fun as a kid. It felt like the story was suddenly, shifting its power structure. I wouldn't have thought of it like that as a kid. When suddenly you have Salatine escape, and so that means that the military have to use that cleverly in order that they make use of the fact that there's an android and they're now sort of potentially one step ahead. This is so brilliantly shot, and that slap, it's quite an un-Doctor Who-y thing. And look at the little bit of makeup on Davison's hand as well, because he's got the Spectrox sting, and this is the sort of stuff that gets Eric Saywood going, having tear his arms out slowly, but actually you can do this without any blood and guts, without any there's no cut, there's no bleeding, there's no bloody teeth. It's violent, and yet it's totally, you wouldn't, it's not sexy for kids. It's not gory. It's it's something where it's the acting and the situation that emphasizes the pain and the danger without resorting to viscera. And look at the way every camera shot, him down on his knees, the two guns pointing in. Just the way that Krelper's grabbing him is slightly. Does Stotts grab his head? No, but this feels. Stotts is slightly sweaty as well. This all feels, and you'll be worked over by experts. You imagine this world where there are people that are good at torturing people to get information. It just, every element of it complements the other in order to create the atmosphere that they're going for, which is one of grimness and danger. So the Armis plan didn't work for very long. I love Robert Glenister's weird, inhuman androidy looks, because they're kind of emphasised by the shooting of it, and it's not like you're going, well, why hasn't Shellac noticed that he's got this odd Leary thing going on? Because it's a bit more subtle than that, and I like it. I remember an interview with Robert Glenister when they said, is there a part I think you regret taking? And he said, Doctor Who, because I was in it years ago and people keep stopping me and asking me about it. And he's since been in it again in Nikolai Tesla's Night of Terror. And you go, so he didn't mean that. It was probably just something he said for an interview, to be honest, as well, and didn't realise that a lot of people would pour on that and take it very personally. He probably just went, I occasionally get stopped by Doctor Who fans. And of course, you can also have enjoyed a job and like a programme, but, one day when asked about something, go, I'm a bit fed up of being the only thing I'm asked about. That doesn't mean you don't like it. It just means you sometimes might wish sometimes somebody would get you to sign their sink or swim VHSs or whatever. And I do like the fact that, again, I think I mentioned this in episode 1, that Shellac would ordinarily be the good guy. And I remember watching this as a kid, it seemed like, because you didn't pick up the subtleties quite so much, that Shellac was kind of the traditional good guy. He's the brigadier kind of figure. Yeah, and I know there's moral, ambivalence with the brigadier and the way that he's treated sometimes. But he was the traditional military figure who seemed as close to the sort of forces of good as anybody. And actually, he's pretty pragmatic and unpleasant. And the nice Salatine isn't particularly nice. And this is a great shot. This is a quite a straightforwardly staged scene. It's only a couple of camera angles, but it's really well done, and it gets the job done, and it imparts a little bit of information, and it's helping to increase the pace. They're making their way to the spaceship. The Doctor collapses. The Doctor fills them in that he's got Spectrox toxemia. And Stotts' response to be totally unsympathetic because this is a cruel world. But it's cruel without being, it's not too dour. It is quite grim, but there's a humour to it because the characters are real, and there's a sort of gallows humour to it, and there's a lightness to it because the characters are all quite colourful as well, but they're colourful without being caricatures, but they are slightly larger than normal, and yet paradoxically, with the likes of Stotts and Krelper, they are quite earthy and believable in Doctor Who terms, because they seem to have come from a programme where people are a bit more sort of gritty and realistic, but that in itself is it's yeah. So it's that paradox, isn't it, of something being larger than life and yet truthful, which I always like in this kind of drama, which is why I'm drawn to this kind of drama. I think because, and I've said this before, because just because something is, stage performances are larger than life. They have to be in order to project, but it doesn't mean you sacrifice the truth through that technique. It's just that you distill the truth and project it in a way that you don't when you're sitting around on a sofa. But also you're dealing with subject matter that is bigger than sitting around and talking on a sofa. And I'm sure there are mighty dramas set with people talking on sofas, and I probably will watch them, but not as often as I'll watch ones about drug running gangsters and becloaked bat cave beasts. And I remember just loving Stotts's headband as well, and I like the fact he then uses it to blindfold the Doctor. I saw John Normington play Albany in King Lear at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and he even then had that slightly he has that slightly staccato delivery that he does, that it would be wooden were it not such good acting. It's a deliberate sort of choice. And he's too interesting an actor for that. But if you just listen to the cadence of his voice, you'd go, oh, that's a strangely sort of almost flat delivery, but it's deliberately so. And look at his eyes. He's doing it all in the eyes, and the stillness is glorious. And again, he's the sort of actor. I love this. Why do I love it? I don't know. It's totally unnatural, and yet it works within its own terms, and it's Doctor Who. And you could sort of say, if I can have a bat monster in a cave, I can have a guy talking to the camera. And it says, go with it. And if you don't want to, that's fine. But I guess you lose. And I can understand if it's too much for some people. I'm not criticising anybody who goes, I don't really want people talking to the camera in Doctor Who. I don't really want people talking to the camera in Doctor Who. But in one Doctor Who story, when it's one particular character and everything else about that Doctor Who story works in a particular way, I accept this. Whereas if it was a Doctor Who story that I didn't think was very, very well made and that annoyed me, I might go, and now someone's talking to the camera. So, sometimes our justifications for things are entirely personal or contextual or whatever. Great model shot even, geostationary orbit. And again, just having the beginning of that scene over the model shot. This lighting is fantastic. Again, Harper's just thinking about because can you imagine this if shot with normal Doctor Who lighting, and even the light coming through this is more like something that's, I'm thinking of Terminus when they're in the grills there, and you get the lovely light coming through that, and you suddenly go, oh, this is a much better looking production because we're on film and you're able to do more with the lighting. Well, that's in the studio, and they've managed to do it with the lighting. So yeah, can you imagine that scene? It just wouldn't be the same. I mean, the fact that Maurice Reeves is so good. I wrote his obituary for The Guardian, didn't I? Yes, I did. Maurice Reeves. I walked past him in Edinburgh once, and didn't say anything, and I wish I had now. It was at the Fringe. It was when I was doing My Stepson Stole My Sonic Screwdriver, and he was there, but I didn't want to bother him. And of course, he was walking down the street. It probably would have been no bother. Although I did, speaking to his wife and his widow, Vanessa, she did say that he didn't mind getting stopped in the street so long as people didn't say that they'd enjoyed him in Taggart, because he'd never been in Taggart. I think he'd been offered something in it, or something hadn't worked out, whatever. But because he was a sort of gritty-faced, and it had that delivery like he'd been chewing a wasp. In fact, that line was cut from my Guardian obit, I think, where I said he had he gave the impression he was chewing on a wasp or something, which I rather liked. That's beautiful. I like that bit with Jack hiding in the background, obscure. It's just lighting and smoke again, which on a normal Doctor Who set, not well lit, not augmented with smoke, would have looked a bit naff. And yeah, his wife Vanessa, but yeah, he'd never been in Taggart. So when people stopped him and said, "I loved you in Taggart," he got a bit pissed off. It's the opposite of Robert Glenister. Yeah, imagine Robert Glenister if people kept stopping you and saying they liked, could you talk to them about Doctor Who? You'd never actually been in it. And this is the plotting of this is very good because Morgus is forced to do what he does because he's got the wrong end of the stick because of the Doctor's presence. So although actually the Doctor and Perry are kind of on the periphery of this, they're very minor players in a way, but that's, I think, deliberate. It's not like some stories, particularly some Saywood stories, where the Doctor isn't very important to the story because Eric Saywood is more interested in his guest characters. I think this is deliberate from Robert Holmes that the Doctor's death is brought about as a result of something that happens really early in the first episode, an unfortunate brush with a poison. That's brilliant. I love the subtlety of that effect as well, the little bit of smoke coming on when he burns his hand. It's just little bits, attention to detail in what is how does he get out of the handcuff scene. Beautiful. But the Doctor and Perry being victims of this dirty war that's all about money is deliberate, and yet of course their presence in it does shift the dynamic and affect the outcome, even if not always from the Doctor's the Doctor being in control of the situation, as the Doctor is more so in many stories. They're very much innocent victims, as Shellac says, but he says it in a much more sort of cynical pragmatism, if you can have such a thing, a cynically pragmatic way, when he talks about "in war the innocent die too," which is a get out clause for people doing terrible things. And we're now approaching one of the great cliffhangers of Doctor Who, which I would be surprised if it's not the thing that Erica chooses, and that's nice. That just goes to show why Davison didn't need to spend the rest of things with manacles on his hand. But look at the outside. I mean, that's just the white studio outside, but the little bit of lighting on the cyc or whatever it is, the studio walls, that sort of purple haze to give a sense of some alien horizon is simple but beautiful, and it just. Because quite often in Doctor Who of this period, you see, I'm thinking of the roof of the spaceship in front of us. It's just they go, well, it's just the white studio, and you've got to take it, which I don't mind doing, but I also appreciate the effort here of and there's a few buildings out there as well. I've got a feeling the word floater appealed to my university friends as well. I liked these people; they were mates of mine, but I mean, you can find a double entendre in anything if you want to. I have to say, and I know I'm a comedian, I'm supposed to have a sense of humour, but there we go. Maybe I haven't got. In fact, a lot of comedians don't. I don't think do I have a sense of humour? I don't think I have. I think we don't have a sense of humour about the things we care about. I do have a sense of humour about Doctor Who, but it's complicated. I remember not really liking the CSO effect there, because obviously now you'd have him bouncing off the walls, wouldn't you? But actually, I think for the bit, and I love this exchange between the two, where they're clearly going through the motions of the things that you say. It's funny. It's deliberately funny. But actually, and the effect of the president going down, they do make an attempt to make him spin, and it's hard to do. And also, it's a program for kids. No, they wouldn't have been able to do much more than they did there. I thought it's reasonable. Oh, yeah, and I have the lift maintenance engineer shot. I mean, it's so bleak, and something that happens to somebody, it's grim, and yet it's just a little line that does nothing apart from add that sort of bleakly comic, dark Oh, it's brilliant. That's why Robert Holmes is so good, because his Doctor Who is scary and it's grim and it's violent, but all within the confines of being a children's television series. And yet the humour is, adult, cynical, caustic, and yet all within the safety of a children's television series. It's brilliant. Love Christopher Gable's body language is superb, of course, because he was a ballet dancer. He was so young, I think, when he died. Because he was touring. He was always, and he was directing. He's the head of the Royal Ballet or something, wasn't he? He was a, highly acclaimed ballet dancer, director, etc., etc. And some friends of mine I've got a signed copy of the Caves of Androzani novel upstairs by him, but I never had the pleasure myself. But he was one that you sort of expected to be around a lot. I remember reading his obituary and going, gosh, so young. And he is very sympathetic, isn't he, Jack? And that's a brilliant mask. I mean, in lesser stories, that mask would be, first thing that you choose as being your best thing. It's a beautiful design. I'm never quite sure. I need to look at the face when we see it, because Christopher Gable is obviously not made up for the whole of this. He's just made up for the money shot, as it were. But you see quite a lot of his lower lip and that eye. And is it really that there's no burning makeup on those bits when we see the full reveal? Doesn't matter. I'm just blathering now. But one does. I thought the episode was about to end when the spaceship started to shudder. So I was winding down. This is such a beautiful piece of acting. And again, it's quite melodramatic, but it's totally true. And I love that twist of the, do you think I'm mad? No, of course you're not. I actually am. And do I frighten you? He says with kind of pity and threat in one voice. And you're so important to me also sounds utterly sincere and, oh God, so terrifying. And it's, I can feast my eyes on your delicacy. It's a very good depiction of sort of destructive love. Nothing he's saying or do from his point of view. It's all you're beautiful and I love you and I would do anything to look after you. And terrible things have happened to me, and I'm the victim here. And yet everything about him is threatening and terrifying, and it's so well judged. And just every single shot. We don't get shooting like this really in and Jet being slightly out of focus there, very right in the foreground. And Nicola Bryant, by the way, is absolutely fantastic in this story. The Doctor and Perry as a leading pair are excellent in this story. Now I remember a review in Doctor Who magazine of one of the House-Dammers Walker's book, I think, saying that that there being a precognizance of the Doctor's regeneration because it's the same effect, and the review going, I scribbled in my margin, that's a load of old rubbish. I remember me thinking, yeah, what a load of old rubbish. Then I think Graham Harper did an interview where he said, I deliberately put that effect there as precognizance of the Doctor's regeneration. So it just goes to show sometimes what you might think is rubbish isn't. And that we're all prone to being wrong about things. We could be wrong about when we think that other people are wrong. In fact, I did it to somebody recently where they sent me a thing and I went, no, that's wrong. You need to check that. And actually, it turned out it was right. So, well, I don't know why I'm just go, yes. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Don't try and cathartically share one's own shortcomings when one could be going, this cliffhanger is brilliant. I love the burning of the door that they had to do. I love the fact that Stotts burns his hand on the outer rim because it's hot because of the thing. I love the shaking of the ship. I love the shot from Stotts through to the Doctor. It's a brilliant angle, and the shuddering of the ship and the close-up of Davison and the fact that he closes his eyes and Stotts is move over to the door because I'll shoot you if you don't. All of that is so good. It's one of the great Doctor Who cliffhangers. I would be nuts if I did not choose it. Are there other things I could choose? Well, I mean, the brutality of the world, I think, is nice. That you've been messing with real spectrox is not the response you expect when somebody says, I think I'm dying of this thing. Have the lift maintenance engineer shot. The fact that Chelak is actually a wrong, and even though he's ostensibly the head of the forces of good, really. The looking at the camera, which I adore. Haven't even spoken really much about David Neal as the president, who's the smallest part in it, and yet perfect casting of somebody who looks like he's a younger man, an older man who's had his sort of life extended. It's a really good piece of casting, and he plays it, and he's a good actor. I mean, he leads in stuff. The funny exchanges between Morgus and Timin, all the beautiful lighting and shooting in the cave. I mean, even the shooting of that monster attack at the beginning, apart from when we see it in its sort of shambling, full length glory. When the camera sort of zooms in and judders and goes closer to the neck as it eats. I think it eats Les Conrad, doesn't it? Romulus and Remus's dad, is all, that's all brilliant stuff. Those cave sets are very good. The lighting of them and the smoke just helps to sell them. I love that pan across as the Doctor's running through the caves. It feels quite, that, especially in such a limited space, that's a way of increasing the pace and increasing the space. And that sort of judderiness makes it sort of, gives you a little bit of motion sickness and adds to the fact that the Doctor's staggering and stumbling about. It's very cleverly done. So much is good, but it's got to be the cliffhanger. And I would be very surprised if Erica Lear had not chosen the cliffhanger to episode 3. Let's see.
Episode 3. Okay, well this is a bit of a girly crushy one, I'm afraid. The cliffhanger of episode 3 is not only my favourite bit from this story, but my favourite bit from the entire catalogue of Doctor Who. And I know there are grown up proper Doctor Who fans out there, but I'm afraid this is my favourite bit, and it's when Peter, my fifth Doctor, is tied up against the wall, and he uses the laser cutter to get himself out of the cuffs, and it burns him, and his hair just flicks up and flicks back down again, and I just think, gorgeous. So I'm afraid that's my one of my moments, I'm afraid. Funny story, I was chucked out of a local group meeting when people asked what your favourite moment was in Doctor Who, and of course this is what I said. I was chucked out for not taking it seriously, but hey ho, we can't all be the same.
Well, that opens up. So first I thought when she started, yeah, she's saying the end of episode 3. Oh no, she's saying the bit before the end of episode 3 where he cuts through the manacles. I'm going, well, I love that bit because I just love the whole way that it's staged, the way that it's done, the fact that he burns himself and you get that little thing of steam from showing him burning himself. Oh no, it's because he's a bit sexy when he flicks his hair. And I was a bit arrogant then, because as soon as she started talking, I thought, yeah, she's going for the end of episode 3. And by the time she finished, I was like, no, that's basically Erica doing her sexy Peter thing, which I did say she'd do, didn't I? I did say Erica would do a sexy Peter thing. But for her, that flick of the hair overshadows one of Doctor Who's greatest moments. But you got thrown out of a local group. See, I've just said I've got no sense of humour when it comes to Doctor Who, but I have much more of a sense of humour when it comes to Doctor Who than a lot of people I see contributing to discussions about Doctor Who, particularly modern Doctor Who, where apparently you don't understand the programme if you don't like it in the same way that somebody else does. If Erica's favourite bit of Doctor Who is the bit where Peter Davison flicks his hair when he's trying to escape from manacles, there's absolutely nothing. I think Erica has proved that she's a Doctor Who fan. She loves Doctor Who. She organises Doctor Who conventions, and actually, you don't have to prove anything either. Let's not get into that. But you were chucked out of a local group for liking a particular thing about Doctor Who. Yeah, you're welcome to our gang. So great you like the same thing as us, but only if you like it in exactly the same way that we do. I take Doctor Who terribly seriously, way too seriously. But I also know it's not serious at all. It's very serious to me, and very important to me, and is quite an important anchor in various points of my life. And I get frustrated. I got very frustrated with my university friends for going floater, because I was largely expecting them to be intelligent people, and that's not an intelligent thing to say. And there's no reason everybody has to always say intelligent things, but I can be very childish myself. So it's all about context, isn't it? It's a bit like the looking at the camera bit. It works and it's brilliant, except for if it's in a context where it doesn't work in, it isn't brilliant, in which case it's terrible. But poor Erica. And it's certainly not what I would have gone for as my favourite thing, but whatever floats your boat. This desire for sort of purity when it becomes to, that's very much, I think, coming in political discourse, that you're either for us or against us, rather than you can have a complicated, nuanced thought processes about an important issue of the day. And yes, the idea that you if you like Doctor Who, you have to like it in a certain way or you're bad. I'd certainly disappointed if people say a Doctor Who story I like is bad and a Doctor Who story I think is bad is good, or they see different things in it from me, and sometimes it means I will then discount their opinions, but then I just won't bother to read what they're saying, or I'll read what they're saying and go, I don't agree with that. And sometimes I probably might think, I'm a bit of an idiot, but it certainly never makes me cross, or if it does make me cross, only on a sort of internal monologue level. But it's an odd one to care what anybody else thinks about, or how somebody manifests their joy of Doctor Who. Each to their own. It doesn't matter. I think I'm trying to overanalyze now, and I'm sure some people will be going, "Oh God, he doesn't half overanalyze things," and often in contradictory ways, which I very much hold my hand up to. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, Erica, you're an idiot. Get out. You're banned from this podcast. But in all of the brilliance of Caves of Androzani 3, getting your hot totty moment. Of course, she's absolutely welcome. A fool. So yeah, I think she's an idiot, but in a way that I don't really think she's an idiot, and I think she's a joy, but a joyful idiot, but not an idiot, but yeah, a bit of an idiot. And I was going to say, and of course she doesn't really mean that. She loves all the. I'm sure she does love all the other bits too. But I completely believe her that her favourite bit of all of Doctor Who is the bit when Peter Davison flicks his hair. And you know what? Somebody liking a thing is good, whatever it is. Not fascism, genocide. But Peter Davison's sexy look is neither of those things. It's anyway. I hate you, Erica, in a way that doesn't involve any hatred whatsoever. So I thought she was going to say episode 3. There's no way I'm going to win when people play the game like this. But I thoroughly enjoyed all of that. It's so high quality. After the opening scene, which took my university friends about 10 minutes to get over. And I used to say, I like these people, but it was so disappointing. A lot of them work in television and theatre now. Yeah, mine is an industry where a lot of people work in it who have utter contempt for it, or it when it's done by other people. But there we go. Anyway, good. I enjoyed that very much. I like television and I like Doctor Who, and I appreciate it when it's done well and managed to. I don't know. Yeah, and I can. I can easily forgive a monster here or there, or the use of the word floater, when there's so much to enjoy that's actually good and deliberately good and is the work of great creative minds and a lot of technical competence, confidence and invention. Beautifully written, beautifully directed, beautifully acted. I'm enjoying the Caves of Androzani, and I'm not going to let you stop me now. Thanks very much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Haydock, and my special guest, Erica Lear, who you can find on Twitter at EricaLear3. I'm grateful to Erica and to the patrons who make this podcast possible, and they include Peter Adamson, Andrew and Lisa, Catherine Armitage, John Arnold, Kevin Ashelford, Luke Atkins, James Bell, David Bickley, Will Brooks, Rick Byatt, Gary Byrne, Robin Bland, Alex Kafajoglu, Paul Carnahan, Paul Caddington, Andy Case, John Curley, Mark Dakin, John Elledge, Joe Ford, Gary Gillett, Paul Goodridge, James Gould, Lisa C. Greco, David Green, Fraser Gregory, Paul Gregory, Dave Hoskin, Richie Howarth, Andrew Jordan, Christopher Joyce, Jess Jerkovic, Ashley Knight, Clive Lewis, Guy Lambert, James Lark, Gavin McLean, Steve Manfred, Dave Matthewman, and Jason Mayo. The music is by Dave Gates, and the artwork by Dylan Patterson. And if you liked the way those names sounded, and would you like your name to sound like those names, except, of course, sounding like your name, then you can have that as one of the bonuses of being a patron of these podcasts. And patrons get their names read out, more frequency depending on which tier you are, but everyone gets their name read out at some point. But that's the merest of prizes. You also get bonus releases. You get early access to all of the Toby Haydock's Time Travel podcasts. These Happy Times and Places ones are 6 months ahead if you are a patron. So there's gazillions of them waiting for you in Patronville. And you're at least a month or so ahead with the Too Much Information and Indefinable Magic podcasts. And you also get an exclusive podcast called Far Too Much Information, which is just for patrons, and exclusive monthly AMAs, which again are patron only. Patrons go to patreon.com/Toby Haydock, and you can sign up for as little as £3 a month. And if you sign up for a year in advance, you get 10% off whichever tier you are on. The tiers start, as I say, at £3 and go up in increments. You also get pictures of my dog every Tuesday, and I'd like to go, but that's not really that important. But it pains me to say they're actually often more popular than the bits involving my mouth and words. Anyway, there's all sorts of other bits and bobs as well at patreon.com/Toby Haydock. It's a nice sort of community too, where people can indulge in their enjoyment of Doctor Who. If you cannot or do not want to do that, and both of those things are completely understandable, you can do the occasional one-off contribution at kofi.com/Toby Haydock if I've done something that you particularly enjoyed, or if you're feeling like I sound particularly hungry or cold or needy, or perhaps if you are particularly flush of a month. It's I just hate saying these words, but it is the way that creatives sort of try and generate a bit of a livelihood these days. And if you go to the Patreon, there's at least 3 releases a week generally. So I am putting the stuff out there. So if you'd like to support me, I'd be very, very grateful. You can support me with no cash outlay at all by going to where you get your podcasts and leaving these a 5-star review and some nice positive comments. That costs you nothing, but gains me all sorts of traction in cyberspace. And so I would be grateful if you could spend just a little bit of time giving 5 stars and a few nice lines of review to Toby Haydock's Time Travels. Thank you. And if you're vaguely interested in anything I might do outside the worlds of Doctor Who, and I know many people aren't, I am a professional stand-up comedian and have been one for over 25 years, including every Tuesday at the Manchester comedy club Excess Malarkey. That has its own Twitter feed at Excess, the letter X, the letter S, Malarkey, Malarkey. And there's a Twitch channel as well for occasional online content from that multi-award-winning comedy club, which is twitch.tv/Excess Malarkey. So, it's a great place, and there's often, a really eclectic and fantastic array of live stand-up talent at that gig. And as I say, an archive of stuff online from when we did shows during the pandemic that shows just the kind of talent that we attract. And it's a Manchester institution, Excess Malarkey Comedy Club. Do pop in and see us. I also have my own Twitter feed at Toby Haydoke. These podcasts have their Twitter feed as well, which is at Haydoke Podcasts. And I have a Facebook page, which is the Toby Haydoke one. It's me looking apologetic in a hat at the moment. And that's my sort of professional page. It's still me, but that's where I share all sort of work and Doctor Who type stuff, as opposed to my personal Facebook page, which I'm sort of phasing out and just making for people I've actually met. Well, I'm doing this on the back of quite a busy week. I've been to see a lot of theatre. I saw David Tennant in a play called Good, about the sort of slow, incremental way that somebody can go from being good, in inverted commas, to a member of the SS. It's a very clever play, with Elliot Levy and Sharon Small as well. Just a three-hander, really. But the original version of that, it had been a play where the various other characters had been played by the whole roster of supporting actors. But in this, Elliot Levy and Sharon Small sort of took on all the other roles. And one of those supporting roles in the original RSC production in 1981 was played by Barbara Kinghorn, a couple of years, 3 years before she was Crow Timmin in The Caves of Androzani. So it all... How is it that I was doing the one Doctor Who story that had a cast member who was in the original production of that? Because actually, and because I would see patterns wherever I was and whatever I was doing. I mean, the fact is, so much of what I am is to do with Doctor Who. There's always going to be some sort of coincidence, isn't there? In fact, I mean, I went to see David Tennant in the play, and I'd messaged him to say, I'm going to see you in Good, and he said, there are a couple of other Doctor Who alumni in that night. You'll be able to play bingo. And I thought, well, yeah, the chances of me actually seeing them, though, after I got a little bit excited. And yet, when I made space to just step aside from Shez while she was settling in, because I had to put a little platform out for her to get into the wheelchair seat, I took a step to the right and just watched as some other people came in to go upstairs to the upper circle, and one of those people coming in was Catherine Tate. So I thought, oh well, I've seen one of the Doctor Who alumni, and then as I was coming out, I let Shez go first, and then I let some other people go. And I thought I'll just hang back because it's getting a bit chocker here, and Shez needed to nip to the loo and all that sort of thing. So I thought, well, I'll just stay back where my seat was, by those steps, some of which were going up, where I'd seen Catherine Tate go up, some of which were going down. And coming up from the downstairs at the exact time that I hung around at the end, having let quite a few people go already, was Mark Gatiss, who obviously I'd just been in Count Magnus 4 just before Christmas, so we'd had a little bit of contact over the Christmas period, but I had no idea he was going, and I thought he'd missed me because he didn't catch my eye. And I thought, oh, shall I grab him? And then he went, you are waiting, Count Magnus, and he'd obviously spotted me, and we had a lovely chat. But how I do feel somehow like a bit of a Doctor Who magnet now? Is it because my senses are attuned? Is it like certain people with certain disabilities? It's the idea that their other senses are more attuned to certain things, or they're more stark, or they manifest themselves better. Though I believe that is supposed to be a myth about blind people having better hearing and smell, but I don't know. But my inadequacies elsewhere and explain that I have a heightened Doctor Who radar, and that somehow wherever I am, because I do spot. I am very good at spotting a Doctor Who actor on a train platform. That's happened to me so many times. Jackie Lane on a train. Is it that I'm constantly thinking about Doctor Who, so I see them? Shez would say it's because I'm always thinking about them. I manifest them there. Although somehow, Mark Gatiss was actually in Dorset that night and then just materialised at David Tennant's play because I'm always thinking about Doctor Who. But anyway, I note it with joy. Barbara Kinghorn was invoked as a name in the playtext because they'd run out of programmes, so I got the playtext instead as a sort of memento, and because it had the cast list of the play that night, but also it had the cast list of the original production, because as you do when you publish a playtext, you always sort of list who was in the very first production of something. And Barbara Kinghorn was there, crowd him in. So they all swim around like faces from the past, which is a good premonition of what's going to happen in the caves of Androzani next week. But I do seem to, and of course I know I'm flattering myself. It's simply that I think I'm attuned to Doctor Who, so I notice when Doctor Who-y things happen around me. But I do seem to either bump into Doctor Who people or know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody appropriate to Doctor Who right now, and blah, blah, blah. I suppose it's because Doctor Who gets everywhere and one meets a lot of people, and inevitably when I meet anybody, Doctor Who comes into conversation either by me or by somebody else, and then the person goes, "Oh, my uncle was in Doctor Who," and I'm like, God, it's almost like I attract these people. No, it's because I never stop banging on about Doctor Who. But I like to think there's a little bit of magic there. Anyway, I'm going to tootle off now and do the final episode of The Caves of Androzani. But that was my post-credits bit for this bit. There we are.